Good evening, and welcome to the Friday Newsdump for May 10th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. We're broadcasting to you tonight from beautiful Stockbridge, Vermont, in the Green Mountains. Let me tell you a little bit about the Newsdump concept. Part of why we're doing Newsdump at 6 o'clock on Friday night is we're trying to catch any late-breaking news stories that powers that be might be trying to slide under the radar. A lot of times they'll have stories that they know they need to release information or data, reports that they need to release them to the public, but they'd like to do it at a time when they won't get much attention. So that's part of the idea of this of the Friday Newsdump, and that's where the name comes from. U.S. stocks climb for a third week, pushing benchmark indexes to record levels. Companies from Walt Disney Company to DirecTV beat earnings estimates, and central banks worldwide stepped up monetary stimulus to boost growth.
Global equities advanced for the week as central banks from Australia and South Korea lowered their benchmark interest rates, joining a wave of monetary easing spanning from the United States to Europe.
Data compiled by Bloomberg shows the S&P 500 is valued at 16 times reported profits, approaching the most expensive levels in almost 3 years. The multiple was 17.5 at the previous market peak in October 2007.
The level of the most important heat-trapping gases in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, passed a long-feared milestone this week, reaching a concentration not seen on the Earth for millions of years.
Scientific monitors report the gas reached an average daily level above 400 parts per million. It's just a round number in one sense, but it's also a sobering reminder that decades of efforts to bring human-produced emissions under control are faltering.
The best available evidence suggests that the amount of gas in the air has not been this high for at least 3 million years, before humans even fully evolved. Scientists believe the rise portends large changes for the climate and the level of the sea.
From studying air bubbles trapped in Antarctic ice, scientists know that going back 800,000 years, the carbon dioxide level oscillated in a tight band from about 180 parts per million in the depths of the ice ages to about 280 parts per million during the warm periods between. The evidence shows that global temperatures and CO2 levels are tightly linked.
For the entire period of human civilization, roughly 8,000 years, the carbon dioxide level was relatively stable near that upper boundary. But the burning of fossil fuels has caused a 41% increase in the heat-trapping gas since the Industrial Revolution, a mere geological instant. Scientists say the climate is beginning to react, though they expect far larger changes in the future.
Governments have been trying since 1992 to rein in emissions, but far from slowing, emissions are rising at an accelerating pace, thanks partly to rapid economic growth in developing countries. Scientists fear the level of the gas could triple or even quadruple before being brought under control.
Indirect measurements suggest that the last time the carbon dioxide level was this high was at least 3 million years ago, during an epoch called the Pliocene. Geological research shows that the climate then was far warmer than today. The world's ice caps were smaller, and the sea level might have been much higher, as much as 60 to 80 feet higher.
60 or 80 feet. Yeah.
Blub, blub, blub. Yeah.
Yeah,
How long can you tread water, huh?
Yeah.
In a related story, there's record numbers of applicants to NASA to go to Mars. There's like a bunch of applicants that want to go to Mars. NASA's taking applications now.
How many are there?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I should have thrown that
It's not quite like a weekend trip to Atlantic City, but they're thinking, man, and if the oceans are going to be 80 feet higher than they are now, maybe we ought to be thinking about something else. Instead of actually cleaning up our messes here, let's go and mess up another planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that story you're talking about, Deborah. I was telling you that I don't think I'd like to go, maybe because...
Well, we can't. You have to be between 18 and 40 and be able to endure a 6-month ride to Mars and then be there forever.
Yeah, I think it's a one-way ticket. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know, I read those Kim Stanley Robinson Mars books, and they were great, but I don't think I'm going to go.
Send us a postcard, guys.
You got it.
Experts fear that humanity may be precipitating a return to such conditions except this time, billions of people are in harm's way.
And also, those changes are happening at a much more accelerated rate, which doesn't give plant life or the fauna any chance to adapt to the changes. It happens too fast for them to be able to evolve ways of coping with these increased temperatures. So, we're seeing it already just in what's happening to the polar bears in the Arctic, for that matter. And Yale geochemist Mark Pagani said, "I feel like the time to do something about this was yesterday."
There you have it. The death toll from the Bangladesh building collapse is up to 1,042. It is the Asian country's worst industrial accident and the deadliest such incident in modern human history.
Didn't they have a fire in another factory too?
Yes, very recently. They're having a hard time there. So,
Greg, what happened to your story?
My story? I don't know. I'm being deprived.
Oh, I know what it was. There was a survivor found.
Ah.
For some reason, this is
There
recent.
was a survivor found.
17 days after the collapse.
Yes.
Yeah, a few days ago. It's missing from our teleprompter here. A top investigator probing the building collapse says vibrations from 4 huge generators placed on the roof of the building caused it to collapse.
The U.S. Senate passed a bill on Monday allowing states to tax internet sales.
Man, that's going to make everything a lot more expensive.
Oh, just expensive. Imagine the pain and suffering of someone trying to run
the paperwork
website.
Yeah.
And
well, I was
tax and
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this.
It's not merely 50 states. It's all the municipalities too. I mean, I guess it's like if you do less than $1 million in sales, then you don't have to do it.
Right. But the other thing is, I'm just wondering, why can't they adapt a model that has been used by mail order companies forever, for people that say, all right, if you are in this state, then you have to apply this sales tax to your remittance for the product that you have bought, and then they in turn send it to whatever state is appropriate. And why can't they adapt a model like that? It seems like a little Chicken Little action happening here, but.
The world's first gun produced by Defense Distributed using a 3D printer was fired successfully Sunday in Austin, Texas.
Was the bullet a 3D?
A 3D bullet? No, I don't think you can print bullets yet because you can't print gunpowder. So, but the fact that a plastic gun can now be made, which relates to a story we did earlier about last week, that this kid in Vermont that is developing a machine that will extrude the plastic necessary to feed these 3D printers. So now we can have 3D guns, and I'm sure Wayne LaPierre is thrilled to bits. So anyway, a new study suggests that all Europeans are related to a small group of ancestors dating back only 1,000 years.
We can't be that closely related.
Well,
no
there's nothing the matter with incest as long as you keep it in the family. But it's just a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange that it only goes back 1,000 years, because what were they doing in the previous 1,000 or 4,000 years?
Well, it's probably all mixing up then too.
So we need some genetic diversity here. There is actually more genetic diversity in the peoples of Africa alone than there are in all the rest of the world combined, because everyone that in the rest of the world is related to the very first and the very few people that migrated out of Africa during a severe period of drought, and they all crossed at one of the very few places where you could get a log to get you to the opposite shore. And so we're all related to those very few people, but the people in Africa, the native Africans, have a much greater genetic diversity. So there you go.
I did not know that.
Another vote for immigration reform.
We need genetic diversity.
That's right.
Researchers have discovered statistical evidence for the proposed Euro-Asiatic language superfamily dating back 15,000 years. We were speculating that means that all languages branched off from 15,000 years ago.
Yeah. For a long time, they've referred to all of the European languages as having derived from an Indo-European language that was, you know, the roots of Sanskrit and a few other things. But now I guess they're saying that even the Asian languages, which are very, very different from any of the European languages as far as the fact that they depend on tones to be able to differentiate one word, like in Chinese, the word ma can mean a horse or your mother wears army boots, depending on the tone in which you say it. So you have to be very careful about inflection. I don't think there's as much room for arbitrary emphasis of a word in the Asian languages, because the tone can change the meaning of the word altogether, which is pretty interesting. So anyway, International Space Station crew members are preparing for a spacewalk to stop an ammonia coolant leak. And in an update to this story, they actually have gone out for a space waddle and managed to fix it, apparently. And I imagine that was sort of a pressing concern, seeing how they are in outer space, and if they had an even greater leak, then it would be a bad day.
Or,
isn't it amazing how all the space stuff is like never reported? You never hear it. You know, when I was growing up, you know, if they did a spacewalk, it was like
live on TV.
Live on TV. Yeah. You know.
Right. All 3 channels.
Right. All 3 channels.
And now it's just, you know, I would go out for a leisurely walk. You know, we'll take our space dog out for a pee or something. You know.
I don't know if they saw, you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I don't know if I'd be doing any.
I don't know if I'd be going out.
Spacewalks, right?
Open the pod day doors, Hal.
A new kind of cosmic flash may reveal something never seen before: the birth of a black hole. When a massive star exhausts its fuel, it collapses under its own gravity and produces a black hole, an object so dense that not even light can escape its gravitational grip. According to new analysis by an astrophysicist at Caltech, just before the black hole forms, the dying star may generate a distinct burst of light that will allow astronomers to witness the birth of a new black hole for the first time.
There has been a lot of talk recently about the possibility of building what has come to be known as a time crystal. A Berkeley team says it will attempt to build a time crystal by introducing 100 calcium ions into a 100-micron wide ion trap. The calcium ions will be confined by electric fields to form a crystalline ring, which will then be induced to rotate under the influence of a static magnetic field. According to the group's calculations, this ring should settle into the ground state when the atoms are pre-cooled with lasers to around 1/1000th of a degree above absolute zero. You got that? There'll be a quiz in the morning, kids.
That's fascinating. So what is
so
it? What is a time crystal?
So a time crystal, it sounds pretty new age to me. I mean, anything with crystals, you gotta say, what? Come on now.
I don't think that story made it clear,
so
but they actually are they're talking about something that supposedly is perpetual, like is eternal. It's this crystal that has some kind of oscillation or something that's supposedly eternal.
So it's a perpetual motion crystal.
Well, I'm going to get more background on that, and we'll get an update for you next week.
That sounds interesting. So,
a record-setting blast of gamma rays from a dying star in a distant galaxy has wowed astronomers around the world. The eruption, April 27th, is classified as a gamma ray burst, or GRB. It produced the highest energy light ever detected from such an event.
NASA and private sector experts now agree that a man or woman could be sent on a mission to Mars over the next 20 years, despite huge challenges. The biggest names in space exploration, including Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, discussed the latest project at a 3-day conference this week in the U.S. Capitol. Renewed interest in the red planet has triggered the launch of several initiatives in recent months, including one proposing a simple one-way trip to cut costs. I think we were discussing that earlier.
About that, right.
Oh boy!
It's the Republicans' plan to solve
get rid of no. It's their Republican plan to solve the liberal problem.
Let's all go.
Ann Coulter will be all over that, I'm sure. You ever taken a good look at that woman's neck? I'm sure she is half snake.
What's she?
Well, that's open to question too, I suppose. But she's a strange lady.
It's okay.
Okay.
To Kill a Mockingbird author Harper Lee filed a lawsuit last Saturday claiming that a literary agent tricked her into relinquishing the copyright on her book.
Walmart has passed ExxonMobil as the largest company by revenue on the annual Fortune 500 list.
This is a gruesome story. A limousine caught fire Sunday on the San Mateo Bridge in Hayward, California, killing 5 women and injuring 4 trapped inside. That sounded just horrible.
That is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. The U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel in charge of the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office was arrested on Monday on charges of sexual assault.
And in a related story, a Pentagon study has found a sharp rise in sexual assaults among U.S. military personnel. I'm Tad Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. We're going to come right back after Gregory Crawford's weekly rant. See you then.
Good evening. I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump from World News Trust. Okay, now let me get this straight. This is the 21st century, right? Okay, so why is it that there is still a disturbing number of males, they don't deserve to be called men, who think it's perfectly all right to sexually assault women? Now, a brave neighbor in Cleveland, Ohio recently freed 3 young women who had spent a decade in confinement and who were subjected to savage degradation by an unspeakably evil psychopath. As a result, the subject of what is appropriate behavior from men and boys toward those of the female persuasion has once again been pushed to the forefront of our collective consciousness. But there was also an incident of sexual assault committed by, get this, an Air Force officer who commanded a unit whose task it was to investigate sexual assaults in the military. You can't make this stuff up. Those are just 2 of the most widely reported incidents in 1 week. There were undoubtedly thousands more that were either ignored by police, underreported, or completely unreported by the victims who figured, hell, the legal system is just going to victimize me all over again anyway, so why bother? Now, our culture reveres pathological selfishness. Oh, yeah, they'll dress it up by calling it rugged individualism or by referring to the lying, thieving weasels as the smartest guys in the room. I got a newsflash for you. Nobody who intentionally sabotages the national economy to enrich themselves is smart. Treacherous sociopaths, yes. Smart, not so much. But inculcating that same perverted self-reverential attitude is what makes a young basketball player believe that he's entitled to have his way with a girl whether she likes it or not. Or to make members of a high school football team think it's hilarious to drag a naked, unconscious young woman from party to party so their diseased friends and admirers can tweet pictures of the poor girl's humiliation. And as evil as those little turds are, we should have particular contempt for the students and parents who would vilify these girls as sluts when the crimes their children committed were exposed. Now, these are just 2 of the horrifying number of situations in which victims have been ostracized and threatened because they had endangered the athletic career of an arrogant jock or an entire team of arrogant jocks. And there should be a special ring of the inferno reserved for those who abuse their positions of power and influence by trivializing such heinous crimes with remarks like, "A woman's body has ways of shutting that whole thing down," when referring to pregnancies resulting from rape, or blaming the victim for the way she dressed, or simply going out at night, or just because she's too pretty. But the deepest, darkest pit of hell is for the lowest of the low, the pig excrement that would murder a woman because she'd been raped and call it an honor killing, or the subhuman mutants that pervert their religion in order to justify shooting a little girl in the head because she wanted an education. But let's return to those in positions of power in this country. Despite their incessant noise about freedom and patriotism, anyone with the brains of a potted plant knows that conservatives hate democracy. Even a cursory review of their antics in local, state, and national legislatures makes that contention hard to refute. But they can't just come right out and say it. So one of their most successful feats of misdirection is to demonize that segment of society that their brain-dead base of ignorant white males fears most: women. They get these misogynistic dirtbags all revved up by telling them that women who want equal pay are just out to steal their jobs, that a perfectly legal medical procedure is a crime against their vindictive Old Testament concept of God, and that only women who sleep around would ever need or want contraceptives. Attacking the rights of women makes it easier for them to attack the rights of everyone, and in the new security police state, only the police and those who control them will have any rights. The rest of us should just assume the position. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm Tad Goodwin. This is Greg Crawford. This is the Friday News Dump.
3 women missing for more than a decade were found alive Monday in Cleveland, Ohio. 52-year-old Ariel Castro was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape.
Jodi Arias was convicted Wednesday of first-degree murder of her boyfriend by a court in Arizona.
And authorities revealed Thursday that in February, hackers stole $45 million from worldwide bank ATMs, with large numbers of criminals using fraudulent debit cards.
You know, I think they caught them, but weren't you cheering for them? You're
well, actually, no. I think it was the diamond heist that they caught. I don't think they caught these guys yet. I think these guys are still on the loose.
I'd heard that they took gift cards, and they found a way to make them unlimited. So you had an infinite gift card, and supposedly in Japan they have ATM machines you can get $10,000 out of, or the equivalent in yen. So they just went up and just kept doing it and doing it.
I repeat, go dudes. You know, I mean, you're only ripping off the banks. You're not
but sooner or later the banks is going to pass those expenses back to us. So it's ultimately it is we who are getting ripped off by these little pricks. So anyway, carry on.
An 83-year-old nun and 2 other people were found guilty of breaking into the Y-12 National Security Complex nuclear facility in Tennessee.
Doctors say that the Alzheimer's drug Gamagard failed to produce results in a large-scale clinical trial. What? What were we talking about?
A new strain of gonorrhea, HO41, is reported to be incurable and extremely virulent.
No, don't worry, it's just a cold sore. The world's largest rubber duck was moved last Friday to Hong Kong. I wonder if they floated it.
Was it a Jeff Koons rubber duck, or was it just...
I have no idea. It is just a rubber ducky.
I saw a picture of it, and it looked a lot like a balloon, like in a parade.
A parade float balloon?
But it was, I don't know.
The world's largest rubber duck. Okay.
Police in China arrested more than 900 people as they shut down a $1 million crime ring that was selling rat meat as mutton. So,
oh, man.
This is China, right? So there you go. It was China.
I think rat is an acquired taste, I suppose. But a new study finds that infants whose parents sucked on their pacifiers to clean them developed fewer allergies than children whose parents typically rinsed or boiled them. They also had lower rates of eczema, fewer signs of asthma, and smaller amounts of a type of white blood cell that rises in response to allergies and other disorders. So, okay, but it's actually a fact that they are absorbing their parents' bacteria so that they can build their immune system. So it does make sense from that standpoint, but it's still icky.
And that is a weird story. And that we're going to end on that note tonight. This has been the Friday News Dump for May 10th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. See you next week.